All right, welcome to another episode of
Star
Star
42
42.
and Jace.
All right, and
Glad to
now
be
this
here.
is episode technically 3, even though we feel it's more like
Two and a
2.5.
half. Yeah.
All right, all right. We're still working on it. We're still working on the distribution, getting it set up, but I feel like YouTube is the way to go right now.
I think you're right.
All right. Well, fantastic. So we were also talking about we're recording this on what day is it today? I don't even know the day anymore. It is
Today is
June.
Friday the 13th.
Oh, it is Friday the 13th. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything should be like Jason says, Jason Voorhees. Anyway, it is Friday, June 13th, which is actually usually a good day on Friday the 13th. And Jason and I were just talking about how next week I am going to be on vacation. And the week after that, Jace is going
I
to be
will
on
be on
vacation.
vacation.
And then the week after that, we have 4th of July, which we're in the United States. So obviously we, celebrate 4th of July. I like to call it like kicking, Britain's butt, in the 1700s. But
I like it.
yeah,
I like
yeah.
it.
But
Just
sometimes,
not paying for overpriced tea.
exactly. Right now we're coffee drinkers, except I sometimes feel like people over Britain are thinking like, you know what? We kind of won the war with the craziness that's going on.
Yeah.
But you know what? Hey, it doesn't matter. In the 1700s, I guess it was 1880. I started in 1776, 1884 is, I think, when it wrapped up. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, we are not going to be back filming and recording anything until, I think, July 11th. So we've got a hiatus, which
About
also
3
means
weeks.
I need to get this one like quickly out the door because I'm going to be out on a plane tomorrow. And
Very cool.
actually, we're going to be going to California.
That's a way better location than where we're going. We're going to South Dakota.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I don't know
driving
what's in
across
South
the
Dakota.
state.
You're driving to?
We live in Minneapolis, Minnesota area, and we're driving all the way across the state to the far end with all the other city stuff in South Dakota.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is there
fun.
anything
We got some
exciting you're
family
doing?
out there. What's that?
Family stuff.
Yeah, there's some family out there and stuff. So
Yes.
we're gonna go do that. It'll be good.
And for people who don't know the Midwest, Midwesterners tend to drive everywhere. So you driving is normal.
I want to disagree, but you're right.
Yeah.
We do drive everywhere.
And then I'm flying on a plane because it's going to be California. So it's going to be a little longer. But so hopefully, like, the governor doesn't hear this and I get my Midwestern, like, card, revoked.
Well, that drive would be like, what, 3 or 4 days?
About 2.5 days. I've done it. I've done it a couple times.
We've driven to Washington, and that takes 2 days to drive it.
Really? Yeah. It's probably about, well, from Minneapolis, yeah, it's probably about right.
And I assume where you're from to California would be a little bit longer.
Yeah. So we're going to flying to LA. So hopefully LA is still there. And then going to get a car and then kind of go up and down the coast. So it's going to be fun. But enough about vacations. Now we need to get into a few topics. So first of all, we got to talk about the news this week. And I know it is so exciting because not a whole lot of tech news has been going on. We had Meta investing a bunch of money in AI. That's not anything new.
That's one thing.
And also we had the WWDC from Apple.
That's true.
I did not pay attention to that because, number one, I'm an Android person. Not that I hate Apple. I'm just like, it works better for me.
But unfortunately, I'm an Apple person.
You're an Apple person. And
it's just how it is.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think any technology that works for you works for you. I use a Mac. I love Mac also. But I don't pay attention much to Apple because ever since Steve Jobs passed, I feel like they have really lost a lot of their innovation.
I would agree.
I'm going to put it on you. What good stuff has come out of WWDC?
Well, I didn't watch WWDC, so I only saw like the Reddit highlights or whatever has been passed, whatever. But the only thing that stood out to me was this new transparency mode thing. I think before the call we were talking a little bit about it. You said something about like it's like the old Microsoft Arrow.
Yeah, the Arrow user interface from Vista.
Yeah, I mean that was a plus operating system, right?
No, I think I used it for a total of 2 minutes, maybe.
I think the only thing worse than it was ME.
I think ME was better because at least ME was okay. So let's get into history of Microsoft here. This is a great tangent, right? I mean, I grew up first using DOS and then Windows 3.1 and then, Windows 95 came out. And Windows 98 second edition was really like the best pre-XP, pre-Windows 2000 operating system.
Right. Yeah. Windows 98 was really good. And XP was fantastic.
XP was really one of the top tier Microsoft
I was so
products.
sad when I got my first solid state drive. I tried to install it on my computer with Windows XP, and XP doesn't support solid state drives. I was like, no. What? Yeah.
See, back when I built my own computer years ago, and I did dual Pentium 3s. Now, back then, one chip just had one core.
Yeah.
And so I had to go to Windows 2000 because Windows 2000 came out. And for those who don't know, Microsoft had two flavors of Windows during like the 95, 98 era. It had Windows 95, 98 for consumers. And then it had Windows NT, which jokingly they called Nice Try.
I did not know that. That's hilarious.
Well, that's what I heard. I think it meant like new technology maybe. But
I don't know.
It was designed to be like the networking version because when Windows 3.1
it was one installed in servers.
Exactly, on servers. And Windows 3.1 and then Windows 3.1.1. Windows 3.1.1 had networking. But basically, Windows NT 4.0 came out and that morphed into Windows 2000. But because they kept the name like how they did consumers in Windows 95, 98, everyone thought, oh, Windows 2000 is the next operating system to get. And it was meant to be workstation servers. Well, when I build a computer with two processors, Windows 98/ME, and I'll go into ME a little bit, only supported single processor. So I had to go to 2000. And back then, and Windows 2000 was nice and clean and it was stable. Back then, two major things surprised me about Windows 2000. Back then, we could burn CDs, right? Now they're coffee mug coasters, but back then they had a purpose.
Yep.
And normally when you burn a CD, it was very fragile and it would take a long time. Like it could take an hour to make one music CD. And so you would set it and your whole computer was hosed because it was doing all the encoding and everything. And you had one processor, so you couldn't touch anything. When I built Windows 2000 with two processors, burned a CD, and I was totally amazed that I could still do everything on the computer while I was burning the CD. Like I was playing solitaire and burning the CD, and I thought I was like the coolest guy ever. And then also what amazed me is after having Windows 2000 on for like a week, I look at my watch, I'm like, I have not rebooted my computer in a week and it's still working great.
Yeah.
And that just floored me. And then what happened was Microsoft's like, well, Windows 2000 is not for consumers. So they came out with Windows ME. So there was Windows 98 second edition. I called ME second edition. It was all the core of 98. It just looked like Windows 2000, so it kind of confused people. Everyone just went with 2000 anyway. And then XP came out. And then Microsoft got the picture. Let's take 2000 core, make a great operating system now for everyone else. And XP was it.
I did not know all that history. I knew some of it, but that's awesome.
Yeah.
So also, I forgot that computers I knew that computers have one processor. I was just talking about processors today. But like my desktop has 8 cores and has 8 threads. Like compare that to what was back then. It's like, holy crap.
And I remember Intel was the one that really pushed hyper-threading. The idea to say, okay, you can have a core, multiple cores, but one may not be being really active on something. Like maybe it's waiting for more memory from the cache or something. So why don't we have it do something else? So it was hyper-threading was kind of the big thing that first Intel came out with. And then I think AMD copied it. And then I'm trying to remember, and Intel's version of multi-core really started, if I remember, where they did something like, oh, I remember now. They had 2-core processors, but when they went to 4-core, quad-core, they didn't have the architecture for 4 independent cores. What they did was they took 2 dual-core chips, basically, and put them together.
Okay.
And I had one of those. It was like the Q6600 Core 2 or something. But the most interesting thing, boy, I'm totally on a tangent right now, but I got to go with this. Sorry, everybody. Intel chips.
Here I'm just thinking like, oh man, I wonder when like VPSs came into play with like the vCPUs and.
God, I don't even want to get there. But the other most interesting thing is around the 2000 time period, there was a race between AMD and Intel. Prior, Intel was top dog. Intel was it, Pentium 2. The
Yeah, you
computer I built
definitely
was
wanted the
Pentium 3s.
Pentium.
You wanted the Pentium. It was the chip. You didn't want a Dorito. You wanted a Pentium. Weird Al
Yep.
Yankovic song reference. And AMD at the time made kind of like x86 knockoff chips. They were, cheaper. And if you
Yep.
wanted to if you had like an old motherboard, you wanted to upgrade the CPU, but the newer Pentiums couldn't support it. And I don't know if you remember, the Pentiums originally started as socket chips, like we have now. And then the Pentium 2s and 3s were like these slot chips.
I don't remember this.
It was like a whole like slot cartridge you had to put into the motherboard. And I could go into the technical stuff of like the L2 cache not being part of the chip, and it had half the speed. In fact, that was what was so cool about Xeon. Oh man, I'm so tangent right now.
I love it though. We're
all right. We're going to go here. So when Intel came out with these slot chips with Pentium 2s and 3s, I think, they were these big cartridges because of the cache for the processor. There's like level 1 cache, which is really close to the processor, and then level 2 cache, which is a little bit more, and it's not as integrated.
Yeah.
Their level 2 cache for those Pentium 2s and 3s were not built into the processor core. It was built separate.
So you could like upgrade them or replace them.
Well, you couldn't do that. It was, built into it as a package.
It was still into the chip, okay.
But it was presented in like this slot. And I keep going like this, like trying to make a form of my processor.
Yeah.
And the L2 cache was running on a bus with a chip that was half the speed of the chip.
Okay.
So when my
sounds
dad,
like a bottleneck.
Yes, it is. So my dad, being the nerd that he was buying a new computer. He was talking to the computer guy. I think we were buying Gateway or something. We were big Gateway fans at the time.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the guy, and he's like, well, hey, instead of getting the Pentium 2, because there's this thing with the L2 cache and it's half the processor of the chip, speed of the chip, if you get the Xeon L2 cache is at the full speed, the chip. So you essentially are kind of like doubling your L2 cache in a way.
Yeah.
So my dad bought a computer that was like a Pentium 2 400 Xeon, and that was the first time I ever heard of Xeon. Now Xeon is still around, and it's primarily used in the like server market. But back then, I was all a nerd because I'm like, oh, what do you have, Pentium 2? Well, I have a Pentium 2 Xeon. That was cool.
Because it's fun to say.
Yes.
It's cool.
Exactly. And then eventually I built my own Pentium 3 computer using kind of an older dual slot motherboard I found on maybe eBay. And then I'm like, oh, you got a Pentium 2 or Pentium 3? Well, I got Pentium 3 dual chips running, man. And not only that, I also had a graphics company called 3DFX at the time.
I remember them. Yeah.
You remember them? I had like, at the time you bought a graphic card 3Ds were not integrated into your regular 2D graphics. You had to buy a separate card, put it in, and run a cable from your outlet of VGA into this card, and then that went to your monitor. And I ended up buying a couple of like 3D Monster 2s, I think they were called. They had 8 megabytes each, and you connected them with a cable, and it was doing scanline interleave. So SLI with 2 graphics cards. I thought I was the coolest guy ever with this. And then I think NVIDIA bought them.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of good history on the tangent. But
so
I don't know how we got there.
We got there from WWDC and Apple.
Apple, yeah.
And how they're bringing back the Aero interface
Vista
from Windows.
Yeah. So Windows came out with XP. Everyone loved it. Then they came out, I think, with Vista, and everyone's like, this is horrible. And the reason why we're kind of making fun of Apple, or not really, but we're about to, is because like that whole Aero interface of glass and whatever, that Aero interface took up like a lot of RAM for computers.
It did.
So Vista came out, and they had these cool commercials. Oh, look how cool this is. And then you turn it on, and you're like, well, my computer's hosed. Like, I got to double my RAM.
Maybe they're just trying to get everybody to replace their old iPhones.
Probably. I think there was something that came out. Remember, there was like a scandal that they purposely like would slow down like your phone and when the battery got old and stuff.
Built-in obsolescence, right? They just, if it wasn't obsolete already, that's why we need a good phone company. But I won't ever get that with Apple. I mean, Apple's fine, and Android's fine, right? Android phones in general.
I think the more innovations on the Android side. I really like the Nothing phone by Carl Pei. He was the one that created OnePlus. The Nothing phone's
amazing.
Yes. He started OnePlus. I had OnePlus. In my life, I had like one Windows mobile phone. which was like a touchscreen. You had the stylus. Then I went to that with a BlackBerry. BlackBerry was a craze for a while.
Yeah.
Then I had one iPhone, iPhone 4S, first dual core iPhone. And then I finally said, hey, I want to get off of having contracts because back then you always signed a contract. So OnePlus came out and you couldn't buy the phone directly because it was so new. You had to go into like a lottery system. And then if you got a lottery to buy it, you could then get an invite to share with other people.
So, kind of like how Gmail like made you share, like if you wanted to get a Gmail account, you had to have a friend. Yep, invite only.
Yes. And OnePlus had this great premise saying, we are going to create like a top tier high performing phone, but like half the price. So like, sounds cool. So that's what I did. I ended up going with OnePlus and I got in the lottery. Then I took my invite and shared it with this one guy named Stephen Mann. He's out in the IT service management world. If you come across him, blogger, really, really smart guy.
Yeah.
We were like OnePlus buddies for a while because like every time I get a new one, I'd share the invite with him. And I loved the OnePlus and I went to OnePlus 2. And what I really loved about it also was at that time, Google didn't have their own vanilla Android yet. So all these companies took Android and like put whatever crap on it. And OnePlus said, we're not going to do that. We're going to take the vanilla Android. We're going to add maybe a few enhancements, but we are going to keep it very clean. And originally they partnered with this thing called Cyanogen. And it was a special mod of Android that was really cool.
Yeah.
And something happened with the partnership. So then what they did was they created their own Android OS, Oxygen. And generally OnePlus was great. So I had the OnePlus 1, OnePlus 2, OnePlus 3. You know, up until recently, the only reason why I went to Google instead of OnePlus is because of support, where the company I work for like pays for my cell phone as part of work. And AT&T is the carrier that would support OnePlus, but it would always be at 4G. They weren't like rated to do 5G.
Sure.
So I was like, well, I love you OnePlus, but I'm going to go with straight Google to get 5G and longer support and faster updates. But I miss them. They are a Chinese company, so I'm sure if I used OnePlus now, my Chinese spy would have another way to talk to me besides TikTok.
Just another friend across the pond.
So, but anyway, going back to WWDC, total tangents, got to come back.
Yeah.
I kind of stopped watching Apple News when Steve Jobs passed away. I just don't think there's innovative anymore.
Yeah, there's not a lot of innovation there, but I at least catch the headlines because in my household, my wife and kids, we all use Apple products for our mobile stuff. And it's just the ecosystem we're in, and that's unfortunate. But that's all right.
It works.
It works.
Yeah. So Apple is going the way of Vista.
That's my take from that headline that I saw.
Awesome.
But I haven't read into it deeply. We'll see.
So probably try to skip this next new release of iOS and go beyond it.
That's right.
All right, cool. And the other thing in the news, tech layoffs. Like, what do we have? Was Microsoft recently like another 1,000 or so?
There are so many. There's this awesome site. Have you ever gone to Layoffs.fyi?
Layoffs.
Yeah, they have all of the layoffs after they happen. There's also another one that's like this for warn notices. Do you know what a warn notice is?
No idea.
When a company is going to lay off a significant portion of their staff, like more than, forget the number, I think it varies from state to state, they're supposed to report it to the government in their local area. And they don't necessarily tell their employees that they're going to lay off these people as soon as they tell the government, but they have to tell the government for reasons. So Layoffs.fyi shows you layoffs after they've happened, right? So like Microsoft, they laid off 300 people on the 2nd, I guess. If we just can I do a search?
That's what I was looking for. I've never been to this, so I'm like,
there's a filter on top. It's not loading. That's weird. Here, I'll throw my screen up if you'd like.
Sure, let's do that. Oh, there we go. So it just took a minute to let.
Yeah, so you can just do a search for whatever. It looks like on May 13th, a month ago, they laid off 6,000 people.
Wow.
Right, and then again last week they laid off 300 more.
Wow.
But we were talking about why do we think this is happening? Right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And I know some people have expressed to me oh, well, people are getting laid off because AI, right? People being more effective with AI.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to just point to something. I don't know if that's exactly it.
I
But
kind of agree with you. I don't know if that's exactly it.
yeah,
And
I think
and
people that are using those tools are going to be more effective,
yes,
maybe. But also, it's hard to measure how effective somebody is with those tools.
unless they have like maybe a cloud-based enterprise workflow platform.
Right,
Then you
but
can
a lot
measure.
of
Then you
those
can
a lot
measure.
of those implementations don't necessarily track the numbers the way that would measure that effectiveness.
Well, then I think they need to talk to their account people and find what tools are available. But
Yeah.
anyway, I agree with you in general. And it's kind of interesting. So, like another cloud company had layoffs, and I reached out to a guy I knew work over there and was like, hey, man, you just started there. There's layoffs. Are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, where I'm coming in on a sales side, whatever, it's not being touched. But he said, like, yeah, it's interesting because they were laying off a bunch of people. But then if you went to their website, you saw a whole bunch of job listings, and a lot of it was AI. So in the tech world, yes, there's layoffs, but if you go to their websites and kind of look and see what the open positions are, you may see there's a lot, and it's like a mass shifting of strategy. I think that's one reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's complicated no matter what it is, right?
Yes.
But definitely AI does play into it, especially when the costs are as high as they are.
I can't argue that. And in fact, I even had another good conversation with someone where, AI seems to be everyone's jumping out on the consumer side, right? ChatGPT,
Yep.
you know, my son
People
has,
sure like the
yeah, and it works great. And Copilot, usually there's Copilot functionality everywhere. But then when you go to the enterprise side, and I kind of have seen the same pattern as well years ago. Do you remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, like when you did consulting, people would say, hey, we want an Amazon-like experience for our users. We want people to come
Yeah.
to IT. Yeah, you remember that?
Yeah.
And then how easy was it to do the Amazon-like experience?
That's insane.
It was insane because
Because
we
they're not set up for it because nobody at any
exactly.
business is like, hey, we want this Amazon like experience. And you're like, okay, well, let's get these services lined up so they can order them. Oh, but we are a snowflake and nothing's consistent. Like, there is approvals and approvals for approvals and SLAs,
Yep.
notifications, and
And you have
this
your
and
purchasing
that.
data in this system, and you have the logistics in this system, and you're using a third party for this. And basically, it was like, we want an Amazon like experience. And people failed to realize Amazon did not start with the Amazon like experience from day one.
Right.
Yes, they had the website, and you can just go and buy a book. But, when they started small, they were able to handle things manually and over time build up automation to now they've got all these massive logistics centers with automation, and that's been around for a while now. And so I think it's the same way where people are like, all right, in my consumer space, I'm getting all this AI just put on. I
Yep.
expect that in my workplace. And the workplace is different for a couple reasons. Number one,
It's a lot more expensive in the
buying
workplace,
AI for enterprise is more expensive
regardless of
because
what platform you go with. Whether it's
regardless.
Salesforce, ServiceNow, Microsoft Office,
Yeah, because
it's
it's
a
being
lot more.
seen. Yeah, because it's being seen of as if I'm a software company and I'm selling to a business, it's a different sales cycle than a consumer.
Yep.
Consumers like, I want to give you the here kid, have a little taste, try this. You like it,
But what's
great. Now I'm
funny about
gonna
it though is the consumer setup is way nicer generally than the enterprise one.
yes, but here's why also data security. Like my son is bar mitzvah a couple years ago. He had to write a speech. My wife, of
Yeah.
course, went to ChatGPT and basically explained ChatGPT, I want to write a speech for this stuff. And it just gave out a really great speech actually. She doesn't care if like people know what parsha my son is talking about, like what verse from the Torah, Bible, whatever he's
Right.
talking about. But enterprise software is different because enterprises have intellectual property. They've got proprietary systems, proprietary data. And, a lot of people who I've worked with are like, yeah, we're testing out Copilot, but we're doing like a very small group. And I'm thinking, why are you worried about Copilot? Like it's just Microsoft Word and Excel, but depends what they're putting in. Someone could be doing a PowerPoint to say, why should we purchase, competitor Z?
Right. I mean, I'd hope that their agreements would say that they're not using that data for training, but I know even the company and the ecosystem we're in, you have to opt out of that kind of stuff.
Yes, you do.
And, that's in my opinion a mistake. It should be the
Opt
other way
out.
around.
Oh, it should be like you have to
It
opt
should
in to
be
share.
you should be incentivized to opt in. as opposed to opt out only.
That's a really kind of good point to say, hey, look, we know inherently there's going to be some kind of risk no matter what. No matter how much you try to reduce the risk, it's never zero.
Right.
But that's kind of a good point to say, hey, how about this? How about if you opt in to help the model, obviously it's community help. Maybe we give you, some knockoff
A discount,
5%,
extra
20,
support,
whatever.
a different level of SKU, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
But that's, beyond my pay grade and probably beyond your pay grade.
Way beyond my pay grade. Way, way beyond it. But needless to say, it's like the AI adoption, I think, comes from that mentality going back to, once again, the Amazon. Like, people are like, well, I get some of it for free here. Why can't I get some of it for free here?
Yeah.
And that's where that boundary starts to cross between me as a consumer and me as an employee. And I think what we're going to see is enterprise AI companies are going to have to start to give a bit more than they expect. But
I think they have to prove their value still.
Yes, that's a big part too.
Which is difficult. But we'll see, right?
We'll see.
I mean, it's been an interesting thing. We're almost at time.
God, are we? What? Okay. All right. Wait, though. So if everyone remembers, our 3 listeners, maybe 4, Jay said he was going to have like a huge announcement. He did not tell me anything at all. So this is going to be like my natural reaction to this announcement.
You haven't heard what it is yet. I'm excited.
I haven't, but I'm just teeing it up. And I heard I'm not going to say I heard it's amazing because I don't know, but
I mean,
I'm excited.
We'll see. Maybe it's been overhyped already.
Maybe it has been. All right. What is it?
All right. So I don't know about you. We've talked about Knowledge 2025 we both went to. Yes. Knowledge was fantastic, right?
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't like Knowledge's past, but for what it is, it's fantastic to connect with with folks from your past.
Yes, like we got to connect.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I miss having content that doesn't feel forced. And I expressed to a bunch of other people, and they said, Jace, I agree.
Now, explain by what you mean by feel forced.
Like, it definitely has an agenda. 2024 was all AI. 2025, everything was AI the whole way. You went to a session about the mobile experience. In the middle of it was a big ad lib for like, how can generative AI make this better for your people that you're designing this interface for? And like that, whether or not that was the right thing to do, it definitely felt like a big ad in the middle of it.
I am going to plug, when I had my lab, which I built all myself, I did not have any AI.
That's fantastic.
I think it had a little bit of something, but not totally AI. Let me put it that way.
So I expressed this, and some other people agreed in my sentiment. And I said, I don't have time to do this, but if you guys are willing to help me, let's make a thing. And so I have a website, www.thenulledge.com. It's going to be a virtual conference. I don't know if it's going to be 1 track or 2 track, but I've already got some key speakers lined up, and I'm excited to see what you think so far.
That that's actually really exciting. For people who don't know really Jace's solid background here, I mean, I first met him in 2011. I was working for a customer. He was working for Fruition Partners. And he was like, I just started in ServiceNow. And every time I had something crazy to do, he was the one kind of giving me the guidance. So he's kind of like my Obi-Wan person. Maybe Yoda. I don't know. But you get the point. And you've had calls out at ServiceNow sales kickoff for the work you did with like the AI stuff of initially before we had our AI portion to it. I think you also, didn't you have like a lot of the old Wikipedia pages and stuff? Didn't you like archive and have some of that?
I never saved off the old wiki, and it kills me because it went away. Like it's gone. Like somebody else had set up a project, and so I didn't do it. But that project's gone now too. Okay. There used to be a website called old.wiki, like literally old.wiki, and it would bring you to a copy of the old ServiceNow wiki. But whoever had it, they registered in a way that I couldn't see who did it, and they let it go. And so it's gone, unless you go to the Wayback Machine.
Wow. Wow. I remember the old wiki, but this looks cool. So do you have a lineup of speakers already? What's up?
I have a couple featured speakers I've spoke to, and they're all about talking. We're still figuring out sessions. But if you want to
share any speaker names?
I will show them in a second here. If you want to express your intent to attend, you can go ahead and register. Right now, it's just Google Forms. We're going to change it up eventually here. We got an actual platform we'll use and stuff. But we're looking for call for proposals for people to speak and bring stuff up. And like I said, there's like 15 of us because I can't do it all by myself. But for the featured speakers I've lined up already, we have Justin Meadows,
You know that bow tie guy?
Tomasi,
Yeah.
Carlene Carter, and myself if I need to be. But there'll be other speakers, I'm sure.
Listen, you got a copy of this?
I don't, but I should get
Better
one.
yet, do you have it autographed by Chuck Tomasi himself?
If you're just listening, this is Michael Subotnick holding up Podcasters for Dummies by Chuck Tomasi himself.
Yes. I have third edition. I think fifth edition is out, or maybe fourth edition's out. But yes, I have an autographed copy of Podcasting for Dummies, which did not ever read, which I should have read.
Right. But yeah, so I'm excited. We're throwing this together. Right now, it's set for the date of October 17th. And it'll be starting at 11 a.m. Eastern time on that day. And depending on how many sessions we get, we might go 2 tracks or whatever the case is. But it should be a free event.
Nice.
And that's super exciting.
Free event. And that's October 17th, Friday. Fridays are great days. Today's a Friday.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the big announcement. I've been working on this for a few weeks with those folks. So we finally got the branding down and everything else.
All right. Throw my name into something. I don't care what. I'll do something.
Submit a call for proposal for a speaker thing.
Do a call for proposals.
Literally the form is so simple. Like just who you are, your email, when do you want to talk, and what do you want to talk about.
Okay, so simple. Even a Slobodnik can do it.
Simple, anybody could do it.
All right, good. Real quick, I know we're probably out of time, but this is great. I wish we would have started with this now. What kind of content are you looking for? Like, are you looking for...
What I've been telling people is evergreen content. Content that is going to just live on, and it's going to be fine. Not stuff that's going to, like, you announce it, and it's good for, like, 2 weeks. Right? Like, I'd be afraid if somebody was like, we're going to talk about the new workspace, this or that shenanigans, and, like, in 2 weeks, they change how workspaces work again. Right? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, if workspace is going to be it, and, like, that's cool. But, you know what I mean? Like, AI stuff is changing, and so like I'd be very leery to do any AI, like real deep stuff in the AI on platform specific stuff because it's still so changing.
It is, and the worst part about it is it's like every couple weeks or something they announce new capabilities, and even account teams are being asked about it from customers, and account team people are like, I didn't even know about it. It's happening so fast, but. If I'm correct in saying this, you're looking for like actual practical content.
Yeah. So like I was talking to somebody else today and I had said, really, we should talk about the things that are valuable and not necessarily the things that are new. Not that new things can't be valuable. It's just things that are just definitely valuable are going to last a lot.
Like that phrase, we should talk about the things that are valuable, not necessarily the things that are new.
Yeah. Because like I'm going tangents all about like vector databases and AI models and when to do this and why I think train's a mistake, like for AI stuff. But it doesn't matter because it's so new. It's that we're still figuring it out. Like everybody in the industry is figuring it out.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, mark your calendars. Friday, October 18th.
Yep.
What's the URL to get to that again?
If you just go to null, NULLEDGE.com.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Or sorry, all right. The knowledge. Oh, I forgot that the knowledge was taken. I did you so it's
we'll put a link. We'll put a link in whatever notes we have. All right.
But it's Null Edge.
I like that. You had to have worked with Chuck on that one.
No.
That was all you?
That's all right.
All right, cool.
Working with them all now though, so it's all great.
All right, well, all right, everyone, put it on your calendars. And you know what? We are well over time. I'm going to go on vacation. Hopefully I get this out before I go on vacation. With that being said, this is Michael.
And this is Jace. Thanks for coming around.
All right.
See you in 3 weeks.
See you in somewhere every week. Yeah.